All right, everyone, welcome back. This is Jerry Deval, and as I promised, I would be live every Friday at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, not only to answer your questions, but also to dive into some real deep topics. Today, I promised that I would go over uh, what it takes for someone to break into information technology and cybersecurity. This is the question that I receive the most, right? What's my best advice for anyone who would like to start or grow a successful IT or cybersecurity career? Well, the answer, as I have announced earlier this week, is you need to learn Cisco routing and switching. And I'm going to explain to you why you must learn Cisco routing and switching. Number one, if you're new to IT, that means you are just entering this field for the first time, you have never worked in IT before. Well, I'd recommend that you don't start with Cisco networking. You would find the A plus curriculum, A plus exam topics, and you learn most of these things hands on. And by hands on, here's what I mean. You don't go and watch YouTube videos, Udemy videos, or take any bootcamp or anything like that that would just lecture you, or where someone would just lecture you on some topics. You should instead do the things that you're learning hands on. And I believe that most people have some type of hands on experience, whether you have acquired it through work or through personal experience. Why is that true? That's because most of us have personal computers at home. Most of us have a network at home. Really, most modern people have a network at home. You may not think about it, but you do have a network at home. If you have internet service that you have purchased from an internet service provider, you do have a network at home. Typically, this network comes pre-packaged inside of one small box. A lot of people refer to this as a modem, but this is a whole network packaged for you in a very user-friendly manner. But if you unwrap this package, you will see that there are multiple different types of equipment inside of this one piece of equipment that you have that makes your network. So this network is your responsibility. Your responsibility. You are in charge of it, and you use and operate this network every day. So this would be the first place for you to start gaining hands-on experience. If you're entering the IT or cybersecurity profession today, what I'd say for you to do is to gain hands-on experience on your own network. And at the same time, you should target an entry-level IT job. And I have decided to create a website, which I'm going to put on the screen right now, that will give you all, that will, I would say, combine all of the different entry-level jobs in one place for you. You come to one place, you click in one place, and you have all of the entry-level jobs right there for you. Now, you apply to as many of them as possible, but more importantly, you look at the criteria, the requirements that the employers put forth for you to be qualified for these positions. What about meeting these requirements, right? And that would be where I would say for you to start. So let me put this website on the screen here for you real quickly, and you'll get an appreciation for what I'm trying to say to you here in terms of where to start. Okay, I'm going to bring this up here, entrylevel.tech. Now, this is a free website, and I'm going to have more information about that next week. But the whole idea is that entry-level professionals, entry-level IT or cybersecurity professionals now have a place where they can learn hands-on, not just learn hands-on, but also they can apply for jobs, right? So I want to share this screen with you, and it says I can't share it. I don't know why I can't share the screen, but for you to see what I'm saying here, I need to share the screen. But the problem with that is this program doesn't allow me to do it, and I'm not gonna sign out. But it's simple. Go to entrylevel.tech. Entrylevel.tech. I have published this website to consolidate all of the entry-level jobs in one location for all of the IT, entry-level IT or cybersecurity professionals who are looking for entry-level jobs. So recommendation number one, gain hands-on experience, whether you gain that experience through work or on your own home network. And number two, once you find an entry-level job, right, that will be your learning ground where you continue your learning journey. And I would say within 6 months of you being on this job, you should be learning Cisco routing and switching. Why is that true? That is because regardless of where you're going in the IT or cybersecurity fields, you're going to encounter some type of networking. And networking typically starts at the routing and switching layer. Now, the routing is not what it used to be before. You see, your local area network, if you are not familiar with it, this is the private network that all institutions have, and you have one as well inside of your house. This network used to be made with what's called a core. A core used to be a core switch. There is a very well-respected architecture that Cisco came out with a long time ago that's called the three-tier architecture. Essentially, I can't show you my screen now. I wish I could, but for some reason, this program is not working well. But the three-tier architecture did three things. It categorized the different segments of the network. And you would have one of these segments that's called the core, another that's called the distribution, and another that's called the access. Or they can call them layers: core layer, distribution layer, and access layer. Some call them blocks or modules: core module, distribution module, and access module. So the idea here is that by having a three-tier architecture, you can have, you will certainly have a cleaner network, a network that's easier to manage and easier to scale. Why? That's because think about if you have a building, right? A building that has 10 floors. Okay. And you have a network. Well, quite likely on each floor, you're going to have at least one switch so that the users that are on these floors can connect to the switch on their floor. So if you have 10 floors, you would likely have 10 switches, right? So one on each floor. I can't show you my screen again, then I would easily show you the design here. But remember, three-tier architecture: a core, a distribution, and access. So in the example where you have 10 floors, you have people on each floor, it is logical that you would have a switch on each floor. Now, those 10 different switches on 10 different floors, they'll have to be connected with one another. Well, these 10 different switches will likely be called access switches because that's where the endpoints access the network. Now, those access switches, they'll have to be connected to another switch. This other switch will likely be called the distribution switch. Now, if you don't have that and you're connecting all 10 switches with one another, quickly you can understand that it's going to be a very, very messy spaghetti. But with the distribution now, you bring all of the 10 access switches to this one distribution, and you can connect now one switch, which is the distribution that has 10 switches connected to it, 10 different branches. Now you can have that one distribution connect to the core. And the core can branch out your network to different areas that your network needs to be branched out to. So that's a cleaner design. So I went into this to explain to you that the core used to be a layer 3 device. That means it was not just a switch, but also a switch that performs as a router. And in some instances, you would find that the core was a router itself, a traditional router. But in the modern networks, it's no longer done that way. What happens now, it has been discovered that this type of network where a switch or a router is performing the routing function is not an efficient network. It's not a secure network anymore because a router does not have the next generation capabilities to inspect the traffic as it moves between different network segments. So your core is no longer a routing device or a device that can perform routing functions. It is rather a layer 2 device. That means a device that cannot route between one subnetwork and another subnetwork. It will have to forward that to a firewall. But you still need to understand how frames are moved on switches and how packets are moved on routers. And for you to do that, you need to understand routing and switching. Because Cisco has the biggest market share in the routing and switching segment, I recommend that you start with Cisco. Because if you know Cisco, you have something very powerful to put on your resume. And if you can understand Cisco, it will be easier for you to understand the others. I'm building a network in my home office now that's powered by Aruba Instant. Well, Aruba Instant are switches and access points. So the switches can be layer 2, they can also be layer 3. It's the same exact concept as the Cisco, except with the Aruba Instant, it is a whole lot easier than with the Cisco switching. The Cisco switching is a relatively complex concept to understand, and the same thing is for the routing. But with others, it is easier. So employers will assume that if you know the more difficult technology, not only will you be able to learn the easier technology, but they assume that you also know the easier one if you know the more difficult. So Cisco speaks volume when you have that in your resume. Well, there was a certificate. Some people ask me as well, do you have a certificate that you can recommend? Well, I'll say there was a certificate that I used to be able to recommend. That was CCNA. And that certificate really changed my life in that once I did the CCNA, my game really leveled up and I became a respected technologist from that point forward. But Cisco has changed this certificate and it's no longer what it used to be. So I won't really be able to recommend the CCNA as the entry level networking certificate because it's too, it has too many things in there and it's not really focused the way it used to be focused on routing and switching. And I prepared something very interesting here to show you, but I can't share my screen. And I don't know why, and I don't want to disconnect from here just for that. So I have the old curriculum that I wanted to show. Oh, voila, I can share now. I can share one screen. I just can share others. I see. Okay, well, I'll work on that after that and find out why I couldn't share the screen that I really wanted to share. But nevertheless, I wanted you to know that, well, let me close this browser. That's probably what I need to do. If I close this browser, maybe it'll allow me to share it after that. Okay, let's see. No, I still can share. Okay, I'll fix that. And for the next session, I'll be able to share my screen and show you all of the things that I want to show you. So I was telling you that the CCNA has too many things and it's no longer a certificate that can help you prepare to be a good network engineer. And that's because they removed too many things and they added too many things. It used to be a certificate that focused on routing and switching. Now it no longer does that. But you can still buy the old book. And really, my philosophy is that you shouldn't be focusing on a certificate in the first place because a certificate invites you to memorize too many things. And memorization is not really what you want or what you need when you're trying to be a good technologist. What you need instead is understanding and ability to deliver on solutions. Because when there are problems, you're not going to recite things that you remembered, right? You're going to be able to do things that you have experienced hands-on, right? It's one thing to memorize a bunch of things that are completely irrelevant and to be able to deliver on the promise that you have made to the institution that you will work for. So my recommendation to you guys, those of you who have been asking me, what do you recommend for someone who's entering the IT or cybersecurity field if you're fresh? You have never worked in this field before, gain some hands-on experience in an entry-level way. That means know how to get computers to be connected to the network, the same kind of thing that you do for yourself at home and for your relatives. And if you haven't been that person at home where you are the person in charge of your network, now is the time. Now that you're thinking about a career in IT, now is the time to start to be that person for your house. Fix your own network. Make sure that all of your relatives or family members are able to connect and have a fast and reliable network. And that's something that will be experience. It's personal experience, but it's transferable to the job market. And once you are there, go to entrylevel.tech, create an account for free. That's the website that I'm publishing to bring all of the entry-level jobs in one location for you. And once you subscribe there, you can find all of the entry-level jobs, apply for them, and start working as an entry-level IT or cybersecurity professional. Then take the next 6 months to learn Cisco routing and switching, right? And from that point on, you would be certified to prove that you have learned some Cisco routing and switching. And this certificate that I will recommend to you will not be the CCNA, but it will rather be the CCNP route specialization. There is a CCNP. The CCNP now has 5 specializations in one core exam. So there are 6 of them. You can choose one of the specializations in the core. Once you put those 2 together, it makes you a CCNP. The specialization that I will recommend to you would be the routing specialization. I think it's called NRC. So look for that and augment that with heavy switching understanding and make yourself a CCNP. Now, what do you do after that? Well, learn next generation firewalls. And where do you start? What next generation firewall would I recommend that you start with? I would say start with Palo Alto. And beyond Palo Alto, move into Fortinet. There are 2 major firewall vendors. Very good, Leonardo. I see your message. The streaming apps let us down sometimes. Thank you. So what I'd say to you, there are 2 major next generation firewall vendors out there, Palo Alto and Fortinet. These are the ones that I have seen that are the most popular. Most institutions have either one of these. And then there's a third. It's Cisco Firepower. Cisco, for a long time, has been the leader of the networks. Cisco leads the way. And a lot of people understand that. For a while, there was no competitor to Cisco. Now, there are some competitors. You have HP, you have HP makes Aruba, you have Fortinet. That's a strong competitor to Cisco, in my opinion, in that they are not necessarily inventing the LAN, but they are adding their own flavor to the LAN. You have 40 switch, I have one right here. You have 40 AP, I have one on top of me. You have 40 gets. And you put those 3 types of network devices together, you have the LAN. And you have the edge of the network, making the separation between the LAN and the WAN. So Cisco has some competition now, but still Cisco is king in networking. So even if the Cisco Firepower has not been ranked as a leader in the Magic Quadrant for a while now, it is still a popular firewall that you will find out there. And there are still some people who still have Cisco ASs. Cisco ASs, for those who don't know, was probably the most respected firewall for a long time. And then newer firewalls came along, and now they call them next generation firewalls. And as a result of that, Cisco ASs are no longer firewalls that are appealing to anyone. Palo Alto now has replaced the market share that Cisco ASs used to have. For those who can afford Palo Alto, because a lot of times it tends to be a bit more expensive, but not necessarily as expensive as people think, right? When you compare Palo Alto with the others, it's about the same price. But many would argue that Palo Alto offers you a whole lot more security features for what you pay and a whole lot faster response to emerging threats. So in summary, when we talk about next generation firewalls, you will see Palo Alto as the absolute leader, Fortinet as a leader, but in my opinion, really a challenger, coming to challenge Palo Alto. And you have Cisco Firepower as really the old king, right? It got its reputation from ASs, and even today, even if it's not a leader, it's still very popular out there. And you have another next generation firewall that is in the leaders quadrant, that's Checkpoint. But Checkpoint is not that popular, and the market share for Checkpoint is significantly lower compared to the other 2, Palo Alto and Fortinet and Cisco. So first thing you do as you enter the field, gain some hands-on experience to be an entry-level support IT professional. And then take 6 months to a year to learn heavy Cisco routing and switching. Then learn next generation firewalls. And you start, as my recommendation, with Palo Alto or Fortinet or Cisco Firepower, whichever one you can get your hands on. Of course, I'm building a community here where I'm creating the platform for people to be able to have access to these tools and have access to mentors and trainers and be able to learn these very prohibitive technologies hands-on. And I provide a lot of information about that. In 2024, we're going to go heavier on targeting the right kind of candidates for our program. So if you're looking for hands-on training, know that there is this out there for you, Magna Cyber Academy. And it is not just for professionals, it is also for businesses who want their professionals to have hands-on training. Think about if your team knew Cisco ASAs and now you're migrating from Cisco ASAs to Firepower or from Cisco ASAs to Fortinet or FortiGate or to Palo Alto. You might want to have experts to train your people on the new gears that you're bringing in. Well, that's the type of custom-made training that we can provide to your team. And the difference is that we're not lecturers who just read books or watch videos and repeat what they hear. We're professionals who do that on a daily basis and who have seen all kinds of weird deployments out there, and we come to show your team the mistakes to avoid. So I'll take a few questions here. I'm going to look here at the chat to see what people have been saying. And if there are no questions tonight, I think I have answered all of the questions that I have received this week in private messages. And you can continue to send me your messages, comment here, and I'll be back here every Friday to answer your questions. So folks, I want to thank you for being here tonight, and I'll catch up with you next week on Friday for another episode of this podcast. And that is my segment where I speak directly with IT and cybersecurity professionals, and I answer their questions live. So come back and invite your friends to be here with us next Friday at 6 p.m. Eastern. I'm Jared Derival, and this is my proof of concept.